Hey everybody, let me make sure I got the right camera on. Boom, I think so. And I was asked to bring the pump back. So one thing about me is I always do what you say. I'm here to make you all happy. So it's been crazy. A lot of stuff happening. Pump is here. Whoops. I've been running around, so shouldn't have done that, but cheesy, I know. Let's just jump in. Hope everybody's doing well on this Monday. And Mondays are normally weak, but this one is different. And there was a lot of volatility, but a lot of fun stuff. As usual, this is Edutainment, Math, Money, and Freedom. And let's jump in. Let's talk about some of the crazy good news that I see that I think is relevant for you all happening in the market. So a plethora of good stuff happened. Some stuff not so good, but is actually good. So we'll talk about that later too. So first of all, Brazil introducing a bill for Bitcoin as legal tender. This has been flying around and this is unbelievable. For those of you who don't know, this would have such a huge impact on Bitcoin you wouldn't believe. That would start a complete arms race. And the reason this video today is called Game Theory, because it's all about the game theory. About sometimes you don't want to be first, but you definitely don't want to be last. And I always spoke about dominoes falling, and here we are. The dominoes are falling one by one, but it's not just Brazil. Tonga. Also, Tonga are trying to introduce a bill as well to follow in El Salvador's footsteps. Now, why is this important? Well, a couple of reasons. Tonga are also similar to El Salvador from a remittance perspective. I think they have the highest remittance-dependent country on Earth, and about 41% of their GDP is money that comes in from Tonga people from all over the world, which is great, and they're very, very family-oriented, which means they support their family back home, which is amazing. But remember, Western Union takes 30% of that money, and that could be shocking. So literally, them moving to the El Salvador standard will increase the GDP of Tonga by probably 13% overnight. And that is just huge. So poor Western Union, they're losing all their best customers real fast. But this is the beauty of it. And we'll see what happens. So go Tonga. And I think they also have the best rugby players in the world too. So well done. Hopefully they do follow rank. So this is what I mean by the game theory being on. Again, once these countries start falling, they will all fall at once. And things like fiat currency will become a thing of the past. But there's other challenges on the way. But before we get into those, let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing now happening. We have a new all-time high of supply shock. Yay, you've heard me talking about the supply shock for the longest time, what it is. And just as a reminder to everybody who may not have heard this channel before, and if you're new, please subscribe. This is the fastest growing channel on the cryptoverse. So, and I'm new to this, but it's been a good year so far. So the long-term holder supply shock ratio has hit new highs. And this metric, for those who don't know, is basically, in simple terms, the coins that have not moved in a long time. And it is very, very bullish when it hits this new all-time high. Now, the reason it's hitting a new all-time high is not because of the retail investor or the speculator or the swing trader or the trader or the day trader. It's Bitcoin is being bought up by people who are locking it away in cold storage. It is leaving the exchanges, okay? Extremely, extremely bullish sign. Big thank you to Will Clemente as well for putting this together. So the other question is, with all this supply shock, can we hit $100,000 in 100 days or less? And if you go out there anywhere and you talk to anybody, many people say it's almost like a foregone conclusion, which has me a little bit concerned. So a little part of my conservative nature when it comes to trading and investing is if everybody's saying the same thing, sometimes it can't happen. But when I look at all the chain analysis, the macro backdrop and everything else, if you said $200,000 in 100 days, I'd say feasible. Yeah, definitely. So you got the CEO of Chain Analysis, Adam Back. You got Kevin Wadsworth, Tom Lee, Scaramucci. Wouldn't put too much credence in him. No offense, Scaramucci. I saw you doing your job working for Trump. Not a very good job, but a funny fellow all the same. And he's really trying to get into the whole game. And he has done his work. He has done a study. But if you also look at the stock to flow model and what it envisions, You listen to people like Plan B, who nails it every single time. You got the stock to flow cross asset model going to 288. 6-digit territory should be pretty easy. So we will see. Either way, it's going to be a very, very fun quarter. And today was exceptional. I tweeted earlier today about how Bitcoin truly is uncorrelated, how the Bitcoin has gone up 18% in the last 5 days or so, and the S&P 500 has gone down 3 or 4%. That tells you something. That gets the attention of the investors who have nothing but red flashing up on their screens, and then they're like, what is this? What's this green thing over here? Oh, Bitcoin? Better get me some of that. But there's more good news. So in terms of Raoul Pal, big fan of his, and he was on with Pomp, big fan of his too. They just did a live interview today. I don't know if it was pre-recorded from yesterday, but basically, if we hit these numbers, he believes easily circa March 2022, Bitcoin could hit $400,000 and Ethereum 40K. And other key words that Raoul Pal said was he basically backs up his words with his bets. Now, there was a rumor that he was going to sell all of his Bitcoin. The way he sounded today was no, he had a big Bitcoin bag and was very, very bullish on Bitcoin. So well done, Raoul. Keep up the great work. He does have a paper, I think, coming out this week. So if you're fond of GMI, I will definitely be on top. I've subscribed to his stuff, and we'll see what's in there. But either way, very easily 100 to 200K by Christmas. He also believes in the longer cycle going out to March or even further, and things could go bonkers. And at least 15,000 was his ETH prediction. We'll see. A lot of stuff out there about Ethereum. But if Ethereum goes to 15,000, that means for me, based on my model, Solana will go over 1,000. So, if we do hit these numbers of 400K and for Bitcoin in spring timeframe 2022 and 40K in Ethereum, I will do anything you want. I will eat anything you want. And I don't eat a lot of stuff. So that includes hats, shoes, belts, you name it, live on YouTube. So anyway, enough bullish hopium. But let's talk about what else is also happening out there. Wealth managers are pushing Bitcoin narrative to their customers for the first time ever. And the really interesting thing about this Wall Street Journal report was the financial advisors, of which in the United States and all around the world there are armies of these people. It's not just 10 or 20. It's like hundreds of thousands or millions of them all over the world. And now they are telling their customers about Bitcoin. So the Wall Street Journal said, I think 14% of financial advisors are currently using or recommending cryptos, up from less than 1% last year. That's a 14x. And more than 25 to 30% of them said they plan to sling Bitcoin and crypto to their customers over the next 12 months. So that is a 25x in probably 12 to 18 months of bringing people into the fold. So again, game theory is on. There's not enough to go around. The supply crunch is already happening and the customers haven't even come in yet. And these are high net worth people. Typically, financial advisors go after people with $1 million or more. So just think, even just 5% goes in, crazy, crazy, crazy things could happen. And that's what backs up the numbers that Raoul Pal is coming up with. Now, the other thing is, these were my exact words yesterday or the day before. I can't even remember, live in a video. I said the Bitcoin price dips are being bought up. I didn't use the word bought up strongly, but I said they're being snapped up like crazy. Any dip is being grabbed, and that's an extremely bullish sign. That means there are people on the sidelines sniping, like the way we snipe on this channel. They are sniping, and they are not waiting, and they're grabbing any dip that's there in seconds. The whales are trying to manipulate, and now the whales are losing because they try to do their little manipulation games, but each time they do, there's other people buying up their gear. So that's why you see the big 1,000+ whale accumulations for some of them is actually decreasing because the whale games aren't working anymore. So good times. This is another interesting and a most beautiful graphic from Bitcoin magazine, but I'm a big fan of Greg Foss. Like Raoul Pal, these macro guys. And the reason I talk a lot about macro is because you have to understand the backdrop when you play in this game. So the beauty of this, he was talking about the implications of Evergrande for risk assets and Bitcoin. And he's a former bond trader, but doing bond trading for more than 30 years. So him and I actually graduated school the same year. But the market, he basically said, still has its training wheels on. A lot of people still don't know how to understand Bitcoin. And that's a beauty because we are in so early. But he also doesn't understand that Bitcoin is a long volatility position. So when you are short credit, you are long volatility. I know that'll sound like double Dutch to half of you out there, but just sit down carefully, write it on a piece of paper and think about it, because this is the key. And Bitcoin is a short credit position on a basket of sovereign money. Okay? Cash, fiat. That's the whole point. And again, I love the way this guy just eloquently simplifies things that are very, very complex down to just a few words. And he said as well, when he's challenged, when people say to Greg Foss, but can't governments print money to pay down debt? Yes, they can. But this is what they call a debt spiral, not death, debt spiral. And the debt never matures. It just needs to roll over and continue. And one day an auction will fail. And when the debt doesn't roll, the receding tide will basically show the people who have been swimming naked, who can't cover themselves. And he also said everybody needs to have some Bitcoin. All fixed income investors need to own Bitcoin as insurance against the inevitable fiat debasement. And bonds are just a fiat contract, as we all know. So huge, very good read. Big thumbs up to Greg Foss as well. Tweet you later on this. Love your stuff. Now, this is a funny thing that happened today. Bitcoin market cap exceeded Facebook market cap for a little while. I think it's back up again. But the surprising thing to me was, are people still on Facebook? Is that a thing still? Anyway, enough of that crap news. So let's moving on. Bitcoin miners. As you know, I just did a mining video about a week or 10 days ago. Can't remember. Analyzed all the miners that are publicly traded, that have over 1 exahash of mining power. And Bitcoin miners are now making $40 million per day, which is up an impressive ton of money since last time this indicator was measured. So again, very, very lucrative time. If I didn't mention it, thank you, China, for bringing a lot of this to North America and other cool countries in the world. Now, if you look at Marathon Mining, they are mining Bitcoin hand over fist. This graphic here is stunning to show you how they have increased their exahash rate over time. And they currently have about 13.3 or will have 13.3 exahashes deployed. I think next month or this month, if they can hook up all their new mining rigs. But the interesting thing about that is nearly 14% of the global hash rate, which is massive. Now, Marathon also said it produced, I think, 1,250 new Bitcoins in Q3, increasing their total Bitcoin holdings to approximately just a little over 7,000, I think 7,035. And they're not selling. And you know what else they did? Like I've been saying, these companies, they don't sell their Bitcoin to pay their bills or buy new rigs or pay electricity. They open up credit lines and they borrow fiat and they hodl their Bitcoin. They ain't selling. And in some also, of course, issue some stock too. So that's the mining news. And thank you again, China, if I forgot to mention before. So this was a cool article as well from Edward Snowden, I think. Yes. He basically said the China ban didn't hurt Bitcoin, it made it stronger. So part of my theory for this is when you have a country like China and you have their mortal enemy like the United States, you're not going to do the same thing as your enemy does. You're going to do the opposite. And I believe that's actually bubbled up the importance of Bitcoin on the agenda of politicians in the United States. So despite the forces that are coming from the traditional banking industry that don't like it, they have no choice. So he also said, the old quote from Edward Snowden, if I can remember, nations need to use it either as legal tender or at the very least make it a reserve asset. And this ties back to the game theory as well. And the design of Bitcoin is to incentivize early adoption. Latecomers will regret hesitating. You out there, you're all early adopters, so congratulations. Keep hodling, keep stacking. Still early. 2.5%, 3% of the population are in on it now, but it's going to go up real fast, real soon. Speaking of that, who wants more control? Who wants more surveillance? Anybody? Raise your hands, drop a comment below. But it's time to get off fiat. The US Federal Reserve is beginning to investigate a central bank digital currency this week. That's a big rush. They said they weren't going to do it for like 2 or 3 years. Now they're digging into it fast. And why? This is why. And again, this is so important for everybody to know. This is tied to Bitcoin because the world is scrambling. It's racing to get their central bank digital currencies in place. China is first. Contrary to what I mentioned about doing the opposite of China, this is different. This is about controlling your people with your fiat currency, and the central bank digital currency is the way to do that. This is the central bank digital currency global status, and you can see here, the world is turning colored real fast, and the race is on, especially places like Europe. European Central Bank are scrambling. They have so many issues right now, and they need it fast. But nobody will want that control. Once these deployments, these central bank digital currencies start happening and people start seeing what that means, that's going to really fuel the demand for Bitcoin. People want to get off the grid. They want to be able to do their own peer-to-peer payments and not be tracked, monitored, surveilled, and controlled by central bank digital currencies. Scary times out there. So speaking of people who are scared to death, the IMF is scared to death. And this was a very open and honest paper. So big respect to whoever at the IMF actually published this. But they said a whole bunch of stuff. So first of all, they said global financial stability, in their global financial stability report, I think it was, the financial stability challenges of the crypto ecosystem is really, really hurting them. And it's really hurting people who actually run central banks. So they have to start issuing CBDCs. Now, some of the key lines that I pulled from this that I thought you should all read is one, crypto offers quick and easy payments, innovative financial services, inclusive access to previously unbanked parts of the world. Look at El Salvador. There are more people now using the Shiva wallet than have a bank account by a factor of 1.5 or 2 or something at this stage. It's crazy. And that's only in a couple of weeks. And the crypto ecosystem is flourishing. The IMF claimed that due to cryptoization, which I think that might mean Bitcoinization without the N, using the word crypto instead, it looks like a bit of a fake word, was due to factors such as weak central bank credibility and a vulnerable banking system, as well as inadequate payment networks. So again, as I always say, all roads lead to Bitcoin. IMF is scared to death right now, and they don't know what to do, except for shove CBDCs down the throat. So speaking of banks and traditional payment processes, etc., CNN interviewed Jack Mallers, I think it was Friday, and basically he said the cost of transferring money through apps such as Strike will make those charges go to zero. So the credit card processors and all the Western unions of the world that charge 2.5% to 15, 30, 50%, whatever, because of the legacy costs and intermediaries, are going to be a thing of the past. And we've seen a lot of these companies actually fall down in terms of their stock price lately. So my play for this, just so you guys know, I'm a big investor in Square, and I do not invest in Twitter. But everything that Twitter will do, they'll do it in combination with their Cash App and Square. So it's a good proxy for this whole play as we go forward, and maybe a little bit of PayPal down the line too. So think about that, everybody. Now, speaking of risk, Stake Protocol was exploited, and the token plummeted 93%. So you always hear me talk about why I don't dabble in things that are outside the top 300, because they're very, very risky. Here's another example of a DeFi play. And this is what can happen in minutes when you're holding the bag. So again, it's very, very important. Make sure what you're invested in, especially in the DeFi space, is high quality, high caliber. Even some of the big caps are a little bit shaky under the covers. So be careful out there. Be careful where you invest. Remember, you can lose 95% in minutes. And that's the key message today. Speaking of investment and risk, but also value, Alibaba, again, China risks remain with this stock. I own a little bit. I shorted the $200 calls. I still have a position in Alibaba, and I'm holding on because it is a crazy value. There'll come a pain point where if it does fall a little bit more, I might just get out, but I'll still have the short. The short is protecting my downside, so I'm not actually getting that badly hurt at all. But 2021 has been a disaster because of the Chinese regulations. But if you think long term, Baba has a PE of 17.5. It's got 16.5 times free cash flow and a 660% 5-year growth rate. And a big credit to Stephen Fiorillo from Seeking Alpha and Sanjay for sending me this article. Oh, and by the way, everybody, Lynn Alden has BABA on her portfolio. So we'll see. She knows her stuff. So that's a little bit of BABA news. And stagflation, you heard it here first. I covered what I believe the future of the US to be, not deflation, but stagflation next. Now the world is talking about stagflation. So that's it. That's it for today. A lot of stuff to cover. Game theory is on. All roads, as I always say, lead to Bitcoin. Good times ahead. Hang tough. I'm going to do some questions now and hope everybody's doing good. Let me switch camera, drink some tea because I speak too fast and it's very dry where I am. All right, so let's see what we got here. Before we do, actually, oh my God, I'm sorry, I have to do this. It's so cheesy, and I'm almost embarrassed. Since we have been on, and I have a little mark and a little alarm, Bitcoin has gone up $480. That's big. So thank you, everybody, for the good juju, as we say. It always happens. The pump always falls down. It doesn't have good legs. At least I'm not falling down yet with all the excitement. So here we are. I bet you, when does Luke first? Luke is first. Thank you for being a shill-free, ad-free, fear, greed-free resource. Now my question, when Lambo? Luke, they are very uncomfortable. There's better cars than Lambo. What I would advise for people who want Lambos is wait for the Tesla Roadster. It'll be better. It'll be faster. It'll be more comfortable. It'll be safer. And it'll drive itself. Not plug-in Tesla, but today was an interesting day on the subject of Tesla, by the way. The whole market was red. And Tesla was up. And Bitcoin was up. And my three biggest positions are MicroStrategy, Bitcoin, and Tesla. MicroStrategy is a bit flat, but we'll see. Okay, Luke, if borrowing against crypto, is it better to borrow a higher percentage at a lower price or a lower percentage at a higher price? Which way would you view as low risk? It's very important. If you're borrowing against your crypto, you manage your collateral percentage very carefully. Best case is always borrow about 25% of your value. So if you have $1 million in Bitcoin, borrow $250K. You can go up to 33%, but that way you won't get a margin call if there is volatility and something happens, because the last thing you want to do, especially if you're using that money to fund real estate or something, is to get that type of margin call that could hurt your position. So Luke, keep the margins low and hang tight for now. Like even if you were borrowing, the reason I say 33% as well, Luke, is if you were borrowing Bitcoin when it was at 29,000, you know the only way is up, then you go with 33%, but never borrow at 50%. Mark Wood, thoughts on quant? Yes, I do have thoughts on quant, and hang on, let me pull it up. I want to make sure I give the right information because I have so much stuff in my head. And quant. Here we are. All right. So quant has really, really good tokenomics, but the problem itself is with the project, with the team, the deployment, the ecosystem. That's where I had a big issue. In terms of the tokenomics, it is really good. And a lot of people like it, but it's not something I'd invest in. And I have reviewed quant many times and I keep walking away. Hope that helps. And I hate to sound like I don't love everybody's coins, but there's so few good ones out there that I would actually invest in. Broke Bank Vegan, if you wouldn't suffer capital gains, would you continue holding the amount of ETH? I would have sold half my ETH. A very good question. I would have sold half my ETH a long time ago. That's the truth. Now, there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of goodness with ETH. ETH has such a domination in the market. They just need to fix a few things. And I think they're close to doing that. I think they're 12 weeks away from solving a lot of their problems. They also have other ways to solve their problems. So I'm still bullish on ETH. You heard Raoul Pal saying it could go to $40,000 by March next year. So that's a 10x from where we are now. And there's a lot of other people talking about crazy stuff like that. So we'll see. But they have some stuff to fix first. And I like things that work. I wouldn't buy a broken car, for example. So hope that helps. Cod Fuel. I have a big Bitcoin bag at 42K. Should I get more at 48K? If it increased my average cost per coin. Yeah, don't think about that. So a lot of people struggle with the destroying their cost basis. And I used to be that way 25 years ago. It's like, you buy Tesla at 40. Why would you buy it at 800? But the truth is you layer in. And that's why I use that term layering in, layer in, layer in. I guarantee the world you're going to hear other YouTubers using the term layer in over the next couple of months. I'm finding my vernacular everywhere I look. But anyway, layering in is very important. So for example, with me and Solana, a very good case in point recently, cost basis 22, very big bag. I bought it 40, I bought it 63, I bought it 81, I bought it 101, 102, bought 121, bought 136, and I'm layering in because I analyze all of the places I can deploy capital, and that looked like the best at the time. So think big picture, COD fuel, think of the future, and especially if, imagine your 80% of your bag is at 42K and you're just putting in 20K, your average is still very low. iRock, hi, if fiat is trash, why do we value crypto in fiat and sell crypto at tops for fiat? Is the XRP lawsuit the real reason the market isn't mooning? No, I don't think the XRP lawsuit has anything to do with that. There's some crazy stuff happening in the market today, like Shiba Inu is going crazy and Doge was up on the coattails of Shiba Inu. So there's still stupid money floating around, like speculators. But the most important thing to look at is the Bitcoin action, and that is extremely positive. Now, in terms of fiat, everybody will in the future value things in either gold or Bitcoin as we go forward, or some other store of value like that. But that's all we have for now, and that's what people are used to. And it's not a bad thing actually valuing things in fiat, because you can see how much they appreciate then automatically. Kelton Johnson, if you have an opinion on Rivian as well as its upcoming IPO. Yes, I have analyzed Rivian. I have looked at the cars, I've looked at the technology, and one thing I love about Rivian is they have this new environmental thing where you can kind of give back to the environment through some Rivian Eco Give Back program. So big thumbs up for that. The car as well, people are confusing it because it's out first. It's going to be better than a Tesla Cybertruck. Rivian is no Tesla. Their technology is very far behind. Okay, from FSD to battery to range to safety, very, very different kettle of fish. So be careful with IPOs, everybody. Do not touch them. You will lose 90% of the time. And check out my Coinbase IPO video from a while back. Gitanjali, hi, 80% of my portfolio contains Bitcoin, Ethereum, Sol, ADA, Link. Remain 20% small cap. Be careful with the small cap stuff. It's just so risky. And I like the rest of your names. I have all of them except for Avalanche. And yeah, it looks good, but just really, really be careful with the small cap stuff. Maybe reduce that percentage to maybe 10% and try beef up your Bitcoin to 60%. That's what I would do. Ryan Promer, how are you? Can Bitcoin help countries become debt-free with a strong back-end hard asset appreciating faster than debt? Not debt-free, but it can definitely alleviate a lot of pains. I'm actually going to work on exactly the impact of the fiscal impact for a government, both having Bitcoin in their balance sheet and using it as legal tender. But even if you look at the GDP growth rates for a place like Tonga and El Salvador, they're already going to go up by 15% just by using Bitcoin as legal tender because of the savings they have. So, yeah, so it's all goodness. Plant-based logic. What's a conservative end-of-year price for Matic? I think, hold on one second. Refresh my mind. I think it was, hang on, because I just updated it. Here we are. These numbers change all the time. And we were talking about Matic. I want to make sure I don't give out the wrong information because the internet doesn't forgive. I was just under $3. I think I had about $2.95, $2.98. But we'll see. It's just one of those weak ones. But I think things like Polkadot and Matic are extremely undervalued. But as people get smarter in assessing value of cryptos, they'll recognize the value here. At least if the math is true and my valuation principles work, these two things are very undervalued. And of course, if Parachains and Polkadot flies very well. So hope that helps. Avice Ahmed, 3 coins you think are cheap right now with respect to Bitcoin. Chainlink, Matic, Polkadot. They'd be the 3. Funny. That question followed the previous question. German girl in Virginia with the lows of June 22nd ever come back? No. There will be names that will crash back down. They were speculative names, but the core assets, I don't see us going back down to those levels. No, especially not the Solanas, the Ethereums, the Bitcoins of the world. I don't see it happening, I'm afraid. So don't hold your breath. Alex, if you had 100K to invest in either 2 Bitcoin or a bunch of HUD 8 calls due 23, 24, which would you choose? And for greater returns, and why? Well, if you're playing options, you get far more amplified gains. So the way I play options, like you can put $1,000, $2,000 on the table and you can turn into $1 million. So I would say calls, yes, definitely. Even despite the fact you could argue that HUD is a little bit overvalued, but because the amplification of 5 to 10x your money, then just holding Bitcoin straight, that would be good. But remember, options are very expensive. Make sure you buy in the money. Don't buy out of the money. That's dangerous. And that's not financial advice. Just what I would do. But I don't do that because, well, I have a lot of HUD 8 options and Clean Spark options now as well. But just for me, it's about capital preservation as well, and not just pure speculation. Ronnie, some news are saying SEC is working to crash Bitcoin price. Do you think this can happen in the next year? I don't think so. You can't crash Bitcoin price. It can be attacked by the biggest countries in the world. Nothing can touch it. Nothing can touch it. And look at the capital markets now. They're embracing it wholeheartedly. So, no. And Gary Gensler is a fan of Bitcoin. He loves it. Chad G. Watch some of his old MIT videos. You'll see what I mean. Chad G, when do you believe Bitcoin will achieve safe haven status during Black Gray Swan market events, and why? Well, we're already seeing a little bit of that, and I've always had that thesis for a while. I tweeted about that earlier today because we saw the big move and the lack of correlation. But if a Black or Gray Swan event happens, it brings everything down. But what happens is you get this very quick V-shaped recovery. And that's why it's always important to have a little cash on the side so you can take advantage of that and you can average in if those things do happen. So that would be the best thing to do. But yeah, it'll even gold during market crashes falls. Like the financial crisis, the dot-com bust, gold fell all this time. So it's just the nature of the beast. People sell stuff for liquidity. They move to fiat. But that'll change. Connor Huddle, have you looked at the approximate cost to raise a child in the modern world? That would be very helpful to your under 35 audience for future planning. Yes, I did actually. I did calculations in that about 8 to 10 years ago. And in North America, like the US, you need about $1.2 million to raise a child properly in the US. 2 kids, $2.4 million. They get slightly cheaper. You can save about 200 grand with the second kid, but easily factor treat them well, feed them well, educate them well, transportation, medical, braces, glasses, sports clubs, all those things. 1.2 million per child. Next child is about 1 million. The child after that, about 800,000. So if you've got 4 kids, you're easily looking at $4 million after tax income. If I didn't, don't ask me these hard questions that may disappoint people. And thank you for your donation as well. Alex and Jeff Hamburg, J Ram, Tai Nguyen, Alan Zhang, Lynn, they just popped up. Lynn Flatford, Capono, Trish Hill, and Post Acorn. Very cool. Shiva, cool name. 1K to spend. What to buy at these prices? Bitcoin or Sol? Buy now or wait for the dip. Also sell link for Sol. So actually, it's a cool question. In yesterday's video, somebody asked me a question. They had about $2,000 to spend and what they would do. So I recommended 3 coins that are all very safe, because if that's all your money, you don't want to lose it. You don't want to spread it around too thin, because then you lose. But it'll be 50% Bitcoin, 25% Ethereum, 25% Solana. That would be your safe play. And your 1,000 will turn to 2,000. So great question. Tommy Walton, I have a hold plan of 5+ years. Right now, 0.8 Bitcoin, 1 ETH, 22 Sol, 1,200 Poly, $60, etc. is continuing to DCA into each a solid plan. Should I add more ETH? Shooting for 2 BTC, 1 Sol, little debt. So Tommy, it's a good question. What I do as we go further into the bull market, the risk increases for the things that have already run up. For example, you can buy Avalanche at $10 a couple of months ago. Now it's at 65, 70 bucks or whatever. Is it going to 7x from here? No, it's not. So again, the further we go up, the higher the risk. And also the altcoins, the further you go out of the risk spectrum, the higher their returns, but they start to stagnate and slow down as we get to higher altitude. This is where you need to start moving to safety. And again, I covered this in yesterday's video. The more you go out the risk curve, you sell those or cut those back first, and you plow your money back into safer assets like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, like Solana, those types of things that have less downside real use cases, less speculation. So that's what I would do. I cut back your DCAing into the riskier stuff and start shedding some of the riskier assets and move to the safer ones. Santiago, how are you from Colombia? What are your fastest horses after Soldomatic? I think Polkadot has a good shot to do really well, and I think Chainlink is very undervalued. That would be what I would say right now. So great question. Thomas, do you recommend I change my Avalanche and Luna bags for some extra Solana? Luna has done very well. Avalanche has done very well. I just don't like the tokenomics of both. So what I mean by that is a lot of supply pressure that's going to keep downward pressure on the price. And the situation is not perfect with other names, but it's nowhere near as bad as those. So yeah, that's why I never bought Luna. I did buy Avalanche, but I bought it because it was so cheap. But I knew there'd be a lot of sell pressure. But they're trying to now fix that with their new burn. But from my analysis, the burn doesn't compensate enough for the amount of dumpage or inflation. Scott Turley, would you explain why each dollar invested in Bitcoin expands the market cap by 25x? That's a tough one. So if you imagine the easy way, there's a long form explanation, but the short one is, imagine you have 14 million Bitcoin in total supply because so many are lost. Technically, it's 18.85 million, but we're going to talk real numbers here. 14 million are available. There's only 1.5 technically for sale on the exchange. Now, if you rush money into chasing these 1.5 million coins, because the money that you put into the market doesn't go to buy the 12.5 that are locked in cold storage, but it goes after the 1.5 million. And from all the numbers that I've analyzed, when you see, for example, Tesla putting $1.5 billion into the market, you could see they bought all those coins over the space of 4 weeks. You can calculate very quickly what $1.5 billion does to the market cap of Bitcoin. And that's where I got my 25x. And it'll vary. That 25x will become 30x, 40x as the supply gets thinner and thinner as we go forward. So Tesla bought at the right time. And that's where that comes from. And it's the same thing works for any type of supply, because you got people that hold stuff and you got people that trade it and sell it. And it takes a lot of money to convince the people that have their Bitcoin in cold storage to sell. Alan Zeng, don't have any DOT. I want to see if it's a good buy now at 31. What's your price prediction? Polkadot price prediction for me, I think it'll go to $98, $97 this cycle. So it's more than the 3x. But again, the risk there is to make sure the parachains float well, and all the other stuff I spoke about recently, I think it was yesterday, need to float, and it needs to get a certain amount of adoption. So fingers crossed for that. But Gavin Wood is one of the people I really respect in this industry. He really knows his stuff. Wicked smart and trustworthy. So I am a big Polkadot fan. And I'm not shilling my bags. For me, it's a small position, but it's one that I layer into as long with Matic. Again, based on math, not based on anything else but numbers and macro and growth rates and potential. Alun, I am late to the game. Did buy some on Friday, but still have 30k left to invest. Should have gone heavily on Solana at 165. Not investment advice. No, you never want to buy all of one thing, especially if you're late to the game. You never know. Like, for example, Solana could break, could die. It's risky. It has huge upside because I believe it'll take market share away from Ethereum, which is huge. but Ethereum is the safer asset. Bitcoin is the safest asset. So again, my answer would remain just buy 3 or 4 of the safest assets. Maybe take 50-60% Bitcoin or 50% Bitcoin, and then 20% Ethereum, 20% Solana, and then for the last 10%, maybe speculate with some Matic, Chainlink, Polkadot. That would be kind of an interesting way to play. What I would do, not financial advice, of course. Thank you. Ryan, again, how are you? Do you think the US government will ever change law allowing collateral Bitcoin loans to avoid taxes? If there are people like Elizabeth Warren and Janet Yellen in power, yes, they are going to try stop that. But it's very unlikely. The people will see the TradFi, traditional finance world is changing. It has to change. And if it doesn't change, it'll go peer-to-peer. People will take their crypto on a YubiKey or whatever, or not YubiKey, hardware wallet, pretend it's lost, and then stick it on a decentralized exchange somewhere and borrow against it there, like an Aave or something. So that's what's going to happen. You can't stop this revolution. They'll try, but you can't stop it. And that's the beauty of it. It's just sit back and eat your popcorn and just watch the show. It's just the funnest time to be alive, especially for me. I'm a financial services guy, so I just think it's like a dream come true, and I'm very happy to be alive at this time. Post Acorn. Sell all of my Sol now to become a whole coiner, or wait, let it run a little bit. Sounds like it got a nice piece of Bitcoin already. But make sure that you have at least half your portfolio should be Bitcoin. And that's very, very important, because the backdrop for Bitcoin is so powerful. It's safe, it's strong, it's guaranteed. 80% chance is going to $500,000, 1% chance is going to 0. Anybody would take those odds any day. Michael Farrell, Axie Infinity had an amazing run. Do you think other promising meta are in place or on the horizon? Yeah, I like the one. It's called Atlas something. It's on the Solana platform. I like that one, but it doesn't. My problem is I don't understand the gaming world very well. I dug into it a little bit. The tokenomics are far from perfect for me, for my conservative investment style, but I think Atlas will do very well, and the people behind it are very smart. Joe Santana, I have 3/4 Bitcoin, 3 ETH, 60 Sol. Should I consider trading my ETH for Bitcoin to become a whole coiner? It depends. If you can, I always push for that, and people always challenge me why. I think it's just to be in that one of 350,000 people on Earth. It's just a very special place to be at these current numbers. It might change if all the whales start dumping and everything else, but hold on to ETH. I'm becoming a little more bullish on Ethereum. People like Raoul Pal couldn't be that far off saying $40,000 ETH. Even if he's a quarter right, we got a $10,000 ETH, and that would mean for Bitcoin to run faster, Bitcoin would have to go to 150K, even though he says Bitcoin goes to 400K. So yeah, hang tight for now and just watch things carefully. If there's a lot of Ethereum strength and a lot of Bitcoin weakness at the same time, then take a little bit off the Ethereum side and layer it into Bitcoin. And that way you save more. But that's the only way I do it right now. Our blogs, 50% Sol, 30% link. Oh, I got a lot of these today. Oh my God. These are hard in the brain. I've meant to add Bitcoin, but a little short on funds at the moment. What would you do? Add Bitcoin. Yeah, you're way too heavy on Chainlink and Matic for that portfolio. So yeah, I'd lighten the load on those and take your proceeds, get into Bitcoin. But I would not put more than 3% of my portfolio into Link or Matic. But I would put a very huge chunk. Like basically my portfolio now is I am 97% Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. They're my 3 big bets. So that's how I play it. MS to 529B, HS kids, keep in mind stocks, fund, adult college, and 12-year-old child. Buy only, sell tomorrow. Again, thanks for the fun. I'm not sure I understand that question. To HS kids, high school kids, mixed school, stock fund, and college, and 12-year-old buy Bitcoin only and celebrate. Yeah. I always say that for every kid, if you can get one Bitcoin per child, that should cover their college fund, as long as you got a 5-year runway. So the 12-year-old is perfect because they'll be 17, 18. So you got 5 years before they go to college, and that Bitcoin will more than take care of them. And hopefully you'll be able to borrow against it very nicely too. Luke, again, thoughts on Raoul Pal projecting a 400k Bitcoin, 40k ETH by March. He is a macro guy, but seems to be too high, too fast. Is he missing something? Luke, that would be very wishful thinking. As I said, I promised this channel live. Now I would eat anything on YouTube live if we get those numbers before the end of March 2022. That's a 400k Bitcoin or a 40k ETH. So I think, yeah, he's way out there. My projection for both is about 8,900 Ethereum and 100k Bitcoin at this stage, maybe 108k. That's the top of my Bitcoin cycle. But if Brazil adopts and Kazakhstan adopts and everything else, and there's a Bitcoin ETF and whatever the good news could happen, then we're easily going to 150k. So that would be my number, 108 to 150. That's my bull top. 400k, I think that would just be crazy. JKS, do you think holding an equal percent of Matic and DOT in your portfolio is a smart decision? Yeah, no more than 3% though. It's funny I should say 3%. I just mentioned that a few minutes ago, I think. Yeah, it's still risky. Like my altcoin bag is like 3%, but I am going kind of all in on Ethereum and Solana. I think one of those two will be the winner, but I will have my tap dancing shoes on. So if I see anything change, I'll hit the button and I'll bounce and move to something else. So for example, if I saw Polkadot taking over the universe, taking all of the Ethereum market share, and Gavin Wood knows how to do that, then you'll see me switch and change. But right now I have hedges on my hedges just to be safe. And that's the way I'm trained to play. One Brightum, if we don't get an ETF this year, will this have a negative impact on Bitcoin since most expected? I don't think so. There's just so little supply and there's so much adoption. If you just look at the money flows and the stat I just gave you, that 25% of asset advisors, fund advisors, are going to be pushing crypto, that's huge. So even if they say 5% allocation to your portfolio, that's hundreds of thousands of salespeople selling Bitcoin solutions, even if 5%, and they convince 3 or 4 customers each. Right there, you have billions and billions of dollars, and that will drive Bitcoin way up to 150. So we don't need the ETF. And anyway, there are ETFs. The world, as far as I'm concerned, is borderless. There's no such thing as an American ETF when there's one just across the border in Canada, or 3, I should say, and about to be a new combo. There's one in Brazil, there's a bunch in Europe and Switzerland and places, so it doesn't matter. It would be nice. It would accelerate the on-ramp for the big money, but it's not necessary. And let me see, Shiva and Avoctopus, where do you buy your shirts? I buy all my shirts at Lululemon. So their size just fits me. And I get really hot. So they are very good at cooling. That's a funny question. Phoenix Zohar, I'm going to buy James a shirt that says your favorite coin is garbage. Just buy me. You guys are so funny. And it makes me so happy to be here every day. Big thank you, everybody. So, really nice. And thank you for donations of Bushido Brown, Chad G, Capono again, Joseph Punti, Dragonfire, Jarek Brooks. It's like Garth Brooks. Maybe you're a country singer. Jay Lee, Joe, Tesla in the Gong. Tesla good today. Tesla has a very bright future. Hasib Chowdhury, Killian Bowen, Capono, Buttboy Crypto, Joe, Moto JB, Rado Pullman, Clayton Garcia, and that will be it. But before I wrap, yes, Bitcoin's still up about 49,000. You know, we will get a little resistance at that 51k level. That's my next level of resistance, 51 to 52. But I think we could knock on the door of 50k tonight. Always happens at 2 a.m. For a Monday that has been historically weak, it's a very, very strong day. So we'll see. Good night, everybody. Take care. Thanks for being here, and thanks for all the donations that go towards the animals.